And that's how I get things confused before. And I now have two live human beings here. Well, no, three, including me. At least I think I'm alive. Uh, there are times when I'm doing work at night. And by work, I talk about something that we called, in my classes, we called night school, that you learn something during the day and then you start processing it in your sleep at night. And that means that you stay in a state of half awake, half asleep during most of the night. And you get lots and lots of things done. And I want to share some of those things with you now. But it doesn't mean that you had a full night's sleep. So I am processing now as we are also um, exploring together. And as we usually do, and we haven't started yet, but as we usually do, I will be doing a pre-meditation talk. And part of that talk is what I was absorbing last night in night school. Um, and um, I will do that until from the top of the hour to the bottom of the hour. And then we will do our catalyst meditation. And I am not seeing more than five of us in the room right now. So I believe in honoring the people who showed up. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, and there's one more button I'm supposed to push, and I haven't pushed it. Ah, I remember it now. That one. Okay. Um, so, hello, everyone, and welcome to the pre-meditation talk for our Catalyst meditation for our weekly Catalyst meditation for this week. And it's kind of a strange moment. It's the beginning of the month, and it's also a holiday coming up. And I'm going to try to address a couple of those things. Um, but before I do that, I want to read a quote to you. And it's kind of fun because I woke up with this quote and I was trying to remember where I had seen the quote. And so I'm looking online, and unfortunately, the quote is by Thomas Berry. And this man he was a font of quotes. And so there's tons and tons of quotes by Thomas Berry, but none about the nature of story, but not exactly the one I was looking for. And I knew Thomas Berry, not for long before he passed on. Um, and I therefore want to find the quote. Make a long story short, the quote is in my book. I had to go into my book and say, oh, it's sitting right there. Um, let me read this to you. Well, let me actually share this with you. And it says, it's all a question of story. We're in trouble just now because we are in between stories. The old story, the account of how the world came to be and how we fit into it, sustained us for a long time. It shaped our emotional attitudes, provided us with life purpose, energized action, consecrated suffering, integrated knowledge, guided education. We awoke in the morning and knew where we were. We could answer the questions of our children. But now it is no longer functioning properly, and we have not yet learned the new story. Well, we have been on the brink of a new story for a long time. Um, and unfortunately, many of us have not recognized the importance of story and also not recognized what story is supposed to mean to us. And we keep thinking that we've got a story or we are acquiring a story when we're not. Um, as Thomas Berry said, the old ones aren't working anymore. Um, and what we think of as the beginnings of a new story is not one. Um, Most of the so-called new stories are rehashed versions of the old ones. So in instead of having um, capitalism and communism, we've got neo-capitalism and neo-communism and even neo-anarchy. And that the rehashed versions of the stories that did not work, that we know they don't work, is not giving us a new story, it's giving us another chance to try to resurrect an old story. Or we spend our time talking about what we don't want. We put energy into what we don't want. And the those stories start looking like anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-colonialism, anti-fascism, anti-anti, as though making the statement of what we don't want gives us what we do. Doesn't work that way. Um, saying what you don't want doesn't tell me what you do want. And then people get really, really surprised when the time that they've invested in the anti-story doesn't yield any level of satisfaction in their lives, doesn't yield any level of connection in their lives. And this is a little bit sad because, as I said, I knew Thomas Berry very tangentially. I knew him through a lot of the people I was working with at that particular time. And um, so I had an opportunity to have a few personal conversations with him. And his life was difficult. And um, uh, I'm trying to capsulate this part of his life without going into his personal stuff. But he was having the kinds of difficulties that a person of his age and his physical, or I should say, lack of physical stamina was having. And nothing that either we're not facing, that we're facing, or we're going to be facing sometime in the very near future. And he wasn't handling it very well. And so he needed somebody to help him handle it. And he did not have that. And he was reaching out to people to get us to help him. And we couldn't do it. I'm on the other side of the United States. And those who are close by didn't want to do it. So here's Thomas Berry, one of the most brilliant people in of our time, who um, at the time he passed was living, let's just say, a life that he didn't want and I wouldn't want for anyone. So his this quote, "It's all a question of story." That quote applied to him. It's a question of story, and he didn't have one. When I see the people, pitching their tents, the weather's getting good in Portland, and people are out there pitching their tents out on the street where they live. Those people pitching their tents don't have a story. I don't have a story for them. We have to come up with one together, and we haven't done that yet. So as I said earlier, um, old stories aren't working. The new stories are just rehashed versions of the old stories, or are the anti-equivalent of the old stories. Um, you know, because I am uh, anti-capitalist. It means that doesn't tell me what I'm to do today. How do I function today? Okay. Something happened to me, I guess about a year or so ago. Um, Went out to get in my car to go somewhere and found that somebody had spray painted my car. And I remember standing out there for a while looking at it like, what do I do right now? It's like you don't generally go out to your car and find that somebody's tagged your car. And um, first thing I thought of was, who did I piss off? And I don't piss people off, or not enough to make them want to tag my car. And it was one of these unintelligible scrawls, and it matched the scrawl near there's a utility box where I park, and somebody had spray painted the utility box, and they decided, like, I got a little bit more paint left. Let me paint the doors of this guy's car. And I realized, and I was thinking about this at that time, that whoever did that did not have a story. What he or she had was a can of paint, um, up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and had nothing else to do but paint my car. Um, our lives are being dictated by our lack of story. Our lives are being dictated by our lack of community. Whoever painted my car had nothing else to do and had no connection or no um, level of community with me. All they saw, they didn't even see my car. They just saw an object that they could spray paint. Um, My brother and I used to do something. Um, we would uh, get hmm, okay, uh, get a package of beans, and they had to be a certain kind of bean that would fit into a straw, um, so that you could then blow these beans through a straw and hit people, bean them, hit people on the walking down the street. But you didn't want to get people walking down the street because you may not be able to run faster than them. So we go wait till we went to our grandmother's house, and she lived on a bus line. And when the bus was about to take off from the stop sign, we would pepper the side of the bus with this mouthful of beans we had. These were machine gun beans here. So we're blowing a mouthful of beans and people getting hit by wet beans. They were not happy, and my brother and I were ecstatic because we were having fun. I'm too bad those folks weren't having any fun. And this is something that um, a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old could have fun. We didn't damage anybody. Maybe damaged a little bit of pride by getting hit with a soggy bean. Um, but when you're doing that as an adult, when you're still doing that, when you're not doing anything else, then there is a problem. And the problem is this issue of story the quote that I read from the beginning. Uh, so bad stories, having a bad story will yield bad results, and you have to be responsible for the bad results that are being generated because you're not generating a good story. So most of what I am seeing in the world now that goes for um, and there's a whole community or whole I won't call it a community, a whole gathering of people around bad stories. Um, the most recent one being the demonstrations that were headed up by the phrase "No Kings," and uh, it's one of those things where you look at it and say, "Yeah, nobody, I don't want a king. Nobody here wants a king." If you asked the people who you were opposing, they'd say, "Yeah, we don't want a king either." And so it's not something that gives you anything. It doesn't tell you what you want. Um, Years and years ago, there was another bad story that was called 4 Years Go. And some of y'all might remember this. This is uh, an interesting concept. And it said, we all know what we want. We know the kind of society we want to live in, and we can approach this as we approach a campaign, um, political campaign. Give ourselves 4 years, like from the start to the culmination of a political campaign, and let's do this effectively, seriously, and we can live in a new society in 4 years. Okay, give ourselves 4 years. Go. Well, it went nowhere because the basic concepts of what we want in a society wasn't there. We didn't know what we want. We didn't have an idea of what we want. We had a great idea of what we didn't want. And I forget who the president of the time was, but you didn't want that guy. And that was about all we had. And so our challenge is um, in all these threads and themes that we hear, how do we actually live our lives? How do we live our lives as though we've got to get to Mars? How do we live our lives um, if my goal is to make America great again? So our challenge is not only how do we live our lives, but how do we create the systems and structures that will govern our lives in this framework, in this concept of our story? How do we come up with a really viable story? Um, um, Now, for the past 40 years, and clearly for the past 30 years, my story has been, the Commonway story has been worn as a button, which is creating a world that works for all. It's on the button, it's on the book, it's we've got um, a notion of what that means. And if we choose to live that story, and that's a choice, and a lot of people aren't making it, but if we choose to live that story, we've got a story that can, well, gets me out of bed every morning. It will identify what we want. It'll identify what we don't want. It will identify how we pull ourselves together, um, how we govern ourselves in this in-between state between leaving what we don't want, getting what we do want. Václav Havel, the former dissident and former president of the Czech Republic, and um, one of my main um, mentors, co-theorist, whatever you want to call us, um, said, when you're getting up out of the bed and getting started with your day, at some point in time, you're getting your pajamas off, and at some point in time, you're getting your street clothes on, and at one point, you are not ready for the bed, and you're also not ready for the street. So you're in this in-between state. You don't live there. Okay, so at some point in time, you get all of your pajamas off, you put all your street clothes on. But while you're in this in-between state, you're not ready for anything. And that's where we are right now. And so what our challenge has to be is, what is it that's going to prepare me to live in this other state? I can tell you now that focusing on the problem won't do that. Focusing on the problem gives you more problem. We keep acting like the laws of attraction don't work for us, or we have an exemption from that. So we can talk bad about Trump, or we can talk bad about anybody, and it doesn't really apply to us. And then we find out, oh, yes, it does. We keep getting more Trump, and we keep getting more of the problems that we're talking about. One of the things that we have to focus on is the nature of the society that we're creating. I'm clear, and I've been clear through 8 or 9 different writings now, that we are talking about a spiritual society, but a very specific kind of spiritual society. We're talking about a spiritual society that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with religion. And one of the things that I've been working to do is trying to um, uh, wedge apart these two concepts, which have some relationship to each other, but also don't have a relationship to each other. Um, for ex a person can be a deeply religious person and have no spiritual life whatsoever. And their whole religions now that are almost completely devoid of spirituality. Similarly, we can have a very rich spiritual life, but not have a particular religious expression in our lives. And so um, I'm very clear, and the Dalai Lama is also clear that a call for a spiritual society is not a call for a religious society. Um, I'm also clear that we're in the middle of a profound transformation, a true metamorphosis, a metamorphosis. Um, Getting ourselves from the caterpillar to the butterfly through the goo, um, and getting ourselves creating new institutions, creating new um, ways of looking at the world. I think I mentioned this last time. I was talking to my grandson who's um, in college, and I asked him what his major was going to be in college, and he says political science. And I went, well, I didn't say it quite this blatant to him, but what a waste of time. Okay, listening to the theories of these old, dead, white males. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with being any of those things. It's nothing wrong with being old or dead or white or male. But if that's all you're listening to, that's a problem. Okay. And um, I mean, the theories of Hobbes and Locke and all of the rest of them. Yes, I took courses there. Um, doesn't tell you what you have to do today. It doesn't tell you how to govern the behavior of somebody with a spray paint can who's spraying your car. It doesn't tell you how you fit together with that person. Um, and we I don't need lectures on how people govern their behavior in the 1600s in Europe. I need to be able to judge our behavior right now, right where we are, and as divided and as separated as we are right now. We have to have ways of pulling ourselves together. And we've been doing that. I mean, this is and Commonway has a great track record on how to pull people together. It's just that a lot of people don't want to do that anymore. Um, I'll be talking about that track record in a workshop that I'm putting together for this month in a couple of weeks. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. However, right now, we're going to switch our gears toward doing our catalyst meditation. Um, we are uh, getting ready to let some other people into our uh, into this space. I have to change a few things, and so I'm going to go off camera for a bit. And I will be back in hopefully under 30 seconds. And we will continue with our catalyst meditation. So be right back. Okay, let's go ahead and get ourselves started on our catalyst meditation for this week. Um, welcome to, well, before I start doing welcomes, I'm going to say hello, everyone, and welcome to our catalyst meditation for this week, our weekly catalyst meditation. Welcome to those who have joined us today and still joining us. Welcome to those um, who are actually with us on the pre-meditation talk. Welcome to those who are following on the outline, and we don't have anyone on the outline right now. And welcome to those who have been with us in the past on the Catalyst Meditation but can't join us today. I always remember that there is a community of people who uh, catch us intermittently, and that they are welcome whenever they come, whenever we come. Um, we're going to get ourselves started the way we normally get started, and that is with our centering ourselves on each other and centering ourselves in our own center, but also centering ourselves in this greater community of human beings and all other beings. Um, a part of that centering is a breathing exercise that we do with a um, breathing synchronizer. And we're going to start that right now. And I will encourage us to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, And if we can continue our silent um, centering for another minute or two. And if we can come back to our common mutual center, we will continue our catalyst meditation by the setting of our intentions. As the imaginal cells within the chrysalis come together to form the butterfly out of the disintegrated caterpillar cells, we come together to form a gateway for the meta-consciousness of the mind of Gaia. We act for ourselves personally, and we act as aspects of Gaia. Holonic consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe. Every atom in the universe holds consciousness. It is always with us. We're acknowledging that now because many humans have forgotten, and many humans have been in denial. We act to reawaken our connection to Mother Earth for the benefit of all living beings. And we acknowledge our connection to all beings. We acknowledge our connection to all humans, including our ancestors and including our descendants. We acknowledge all beings who thrive on and in the air. We acknowledge all beings who thrive on and in the water. We acknowledge all beings who thrive on and in the earth. We acknowledge all beings who thrive on and in our bodies. We acknowledge all beings that thrive on light, the beings of the plant realms. We acknowledge all meta-beings, and that includes the earth as a living meta-being, air as a living meta-being, fire as a living meta-being, water as a living meta-being, all colony beings, meta-beings that are collections of solo beings. And this includes murmurations, colonies, schools, hives, pods, flocks, herds, migrations, harmonies, swarms, and other forms of colony beings, and all other forms of consciousness, known and unknown to us. Having acknowledged these beings, We now blend all of our energies. May all who are part of Gaia be connected to and in perfect health, harmony, and balance with each other and with Gaia for the common good. We are in perfect physical health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect emotional health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect relational health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect mental health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect spiritual health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect holonic health, harmony, and balance. We are in perfect spatial and temporal health, harmony, and balance. We are in the perfect place at the perfect time, in the perfect conditions, and with the perfect beings. We set and we energize our declarations. We declare that Gaia, Mother Earth, is the ultimate governing principle, the way that humans govern their behavior on this planet, replacing all other forms of human governance. This is the way our behavior aligns with the will of the Earth. We declare that humans are colony beings. We deepen and expand our human murmurations, our human harmonies. We declare that Mother Earth is providing all necessary resources to achieve the vision of a world that works for all living beings. We declare that we're creating a political and economic system where all beings participate in it, all beings are in relationship with it, all beings own it, all beings benefit from it, and all beings govern it for the common good. So we'll now meditate within this holonic energy, within the energy of Mother Earth. In our meditations, we'll be listening for any messages that we may receive. We'll be making any personal requests that we may have at this time. And we'll be deepening and expanding our human experience of our human murmurations, our human harmonies. And we'll be doing that for the next 8 to 10 minutes, starting now. So if you can come back to our common center, we will conclude our catalyst meditation with our inclusivity mantra. You are free to um, repeat after me or repeat silently to yourself. May I be well. May I be secure. May I be happy. May you be well. May you be secure. May you be happy. May we be well. May we be secure. May we be happy. And may all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. And so it is, and so it shall be. Thank you for attending our weekly Catalyst meditation for this week. Some of you will have to leave and do work, and others of you can stick around and we can chat for a bit. If you've got something to drink, you can drink it. And I think iPhone 13 is Jenna. And I am going to, before Jenna says anything, before iPhone 13 says anything, um, this is an informal section of our weekly talk. We can talk about the issues that I raised in our the first part of the talk before the meditation, or anything else, almost anything else. And the way we get recognized is as I'm about to recognize iPhone 13, you turn your microphone on and I see that and say, oh, your microphone's on. Or, oh, and I need to remove my spotlight here. Ta-da. Or if you can, in the react button underneath this window, if you can raise your digital hand, I can see that and I can recognize you. Or you can actually wave your meat hand around if you don't have a digital hand to put up. And if your camera's on, I'll see that. So now with that preamble, Jenna, what's new in your world?
Hi, I wanted to say that um, I need to get into the car and drive for a while. I will try to reconnect.
Okay. And I'll
Okay.
try to see that you are reconnected.
Okay.
And somebody just did that today. I try to, during the meditation, someone who was on the call got off the call and it got back on the call, and I have to let them back into the room. I'm trying to fix the technology around that so people can let themselves in, and if you get disconnected, you can reconnect yourself. I'm trying to work on that. Along with everything else, and I'll let you know how that turns out. Um, I know people do that, and I also know that um, uh, they can get people who don't have the best interests of the group at heart and are very discordant and have to be escorted out of our digital space here. So that's something that we have to deal with. Anyone else? How are we doing today? Um, and what are our thoughts? Are there any thoughts in terms of what I raised in the premeditation talk in terms of the question of story? And Kate, I see that you've got digital hand up. You've got a microphone that's not up though. I can't hear you.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. So, I guess the area that you talked about earlier that intrigued me is just how because I know in Portland this real challenge around people who are living on the streets, and how do we create community with, not just around. It feels like what we're doing is just kind of trying to figure out how to manage. And I'm really,
Yes,
and so I'm curious how, yeah, how do we just on a daily basis, some of the things, how do we create more connectivity to
mhm,
people when I think in some cases, uh, I have a, yeah. So I'm curious what people are learning, doing, what's helpful in their own lives to think about this, because you're right. I guess for me, I feel like everybody is needed, but I don't in our communities, but I don't think people feel needed. I feel they feel needy. And how do we think about how we both interact with people, and how do we organize our communities so people feel needed, not needy. It feels like the neediness is, if anything, escalating, oh, and the anxiety and all that stuff. So I'm
mhm,
curious to learn from other people what they're thinking around that.
yeah. Um, I think that those are very powerful questions. I am uh I over the course of the last few decades, I've got some working hypotheses about that, and some very practical kinds of things that can be done. I think that you are absolutely right. I think here in Portland, we try to manage the problem as opposed to eliminating the problem. I think that we don't want to address that we've got a number of different threads, sometimes pulling in opposing and contradictory ways. We've got people trying ideas out in the context. See you. Okay. This the top of the hour. Leanna's gone. Um, 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 People operating in contradictory and conflicting ways. And um afraid to talk about the fact that some of the things that we are doing makes the problem worse. Some of the things we're doing in the name of compassion makes the problem worse. And some of the things that we're doing in terms of trying to eliminate the problem increases the problem. Um, our The bottom line is we no longer have an economy. We are on free float, and where we're floating to, we don't know where we're floating to. Um, where there are people who have resources completely out of the framework of reality. Okay. Um, uh, the media was saturated with the Jeff Bezos wedding. Um, and you could have a wedding like that simply because um, you've got the money to do it. And money that's outside of any several countries. I mean, there are countries that don't have the kind of money to put to do what he did. Okay. Um, there are countries who have navies that are smaller than his yacht. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that, but we don't know how to fix the wrong. I'm sorry. We don't know how to make an omelet without breaking the eggs. Uh, Someone like me, I am more than willing to break somebody else's eggs. The question is, am I willing to break my own? And am I willing to, um, how do we put into place things that have been part of a society for the longest time. Um, and uh, I gave the example during the talk of being a young kid and spitting beans at people, beaning people. Um, that is essentially harmless. It's aggravating. If some kid wants to do that to me, I chase them down the street, make sure they get their exercise. Um, but it's essentially a harmless activity. Scratching the paint on somebody's car is not a harmless activity. Breaking their window just to see it shatter is not a harmless activity. And that person is fundamentally not part of your community. And we have to start recognizing that we have to have communities that work. So a guy who takes over the entire city of Venice to have a week-long party for him and his very, very, very rich friends is not part of my community. He's not. He's just not there. He's not. The guy who spray paints, guy or girl who spray paints my car, is not part of my community. How do we start weaving ourselves together in such a way that we start becoming part of each other's community? I may have talked about this last time, but I'm going to talk about it again because I think it's a really important point, and I'm going to see if I can. I have friends. I mean, like actually friends, and for whatever reason, I don't call their names often. I can't remember their names. Okay, and so this is a friend who um, um, was the former mayor of Missoula, Montana, and uh, wrote a really good book called. He may have several books. The one I remember reading and holding is "Community and the Politics of Place." And he talked about being growing up in eastern Montana and that he needed his neighbors. He he absolutely relied on his neighbors. And he was saying that, harvest time, planting time, lambing time. Lambing is a verb, and I have no idea how you lamb. I've never lambed before, but they said it's really important. And um, and you need your neighbors when you got to do some lambing. You need your neighbors. And he said we didn't like our neighbors. We didn't. My mom thought they cursed too much and they drank too much and the kids were too bad and there's nothing about them we liked. But if we didn't help each other, we would all die. Now, that's called an economy, and that's called how you deal with the issue of neighbors. Here in my building, and I talk about my building a lot. There are four units in this building, and then there's about 30 units that are related to us, but in a different building. Those people over there. And we just had a turnover of half the building. We had someone move out, and and I was surprised because we hadn't talked about them moving out. And we have somebody else move in, and we don't talk about who moves in. And I like the person leaving. I also like the people coming in. And I realize every time there's a leaving and every time there's a coming in that I need these people for nothing, not one thing. We help each other. Like, somebody's got an Amazon package, whoever the first one at the door is brings the package inside the lobby to make sure it's secure. You may want to uh, call or text the person that you got a package here or whatever. We try to be nice to each other, but I don't need anybody to do that. Um, how do we just develop a society where we start recognizing that we actually need each other? Something that happens in apartment buildings all the time is neighbor plays their music too loud, um, and they've somebody else needs to modulate their behavior. How do you do that? Well, nowadays you don't talk to that person directly. You call the building manager, and the building manager does this innocuous. It has come to our attention that there are people who are playing their music too loud, and there are rules and regulations that say after 11 o'clock, and that is not the way to handle it. Um, or you go and knock on their door real angrily, and can you hold that music down? And that's also not the way to handle it. And this actually came up during one of our meditations. My neighbor who used to be over there as of last week, um, starts playing their music really loud, loud enough for me to hear in here. And while conducting the meditation, I had to fire off can you hold that down? I'm doing a meditation right now. People can hear it. Da, da, da. And it went down immediately. And I got oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And got a follow up from her and also a verbal from her. And we wound up talking about it over a bottle of wine. And, it built community by the fact that I didn't try to get someone else involved. And I also didn't um, give her anger or attitude or anything like that. Now, I know how to do things like that. I have experience in doing things like that. I have experience doing things like that cross-culturally, internationally, etc. That part's easy. um, but how do we create that in our communities, especially in the communities that we don't normally connect with? Um, okay, I'm pausing there to give someone else a chance to say something. Y'all haven't been holding me to my 4-minute rule here, so I'm getting my timer in front of me so that I can get um, not go on and on and on. Um, I don't want to be accused of being Vladimir Putin, who does a press conference, and there's generally one question because he will then talk for 3 hours on the one question. Um, so I'm restricting myself to 3 minutes. So we'll get a few more questions in. Karen, you've got hand up and microphone hot, so go for it.
This might seem strange, but I was listening to you going through I forgot what you call it, but reading through everything. And it was like, huh, yeah, creating a world that works for all. But I think what we're really getting at is something that governs the humans of all those beings that you you know, it's like the other beings aren't necessarily, other than their presence and us, mm, you know, anyhow, it's more the humans needing to come together to come up with a way of governing the humans, but with the recognition that we're actually in community with a lot of other beings too, and they have a right to exist and thrive as well. But they're not interact or I can't I'm not quite sure how they would contribute to the conversation, you know what I mean, or the whatever. So that was the thought that crossed my mind.
I will, for number one, I am so happy that that thought crossed your mind because it's, I, I can say, you know, all beings, all I want to, and we treat other beings like a backdrop, like, you know, um, behind me, you see a love seat that has a Pendleton blanket on it. You see some books. You see actually that's a real honest to goodness live plant there. These are my other beings down here, etc. Um, but we are trained to think about all that as just furniture, as just wallpaper, as just these are not things that are really uh, important to us. I believe, oops, I have my timer then, but I didn't push the button. I believe, and this is, I think, really important, that when we move away from the natural world, the less likely we are to be able to govern our behavior in any kind of effective way. Now, sometime in the next couple of hours, all of us are going to put food in our mouths. We don't have a relationship to the food we put in our mouths. All of us are going to drink water. And we don't have a relationship to the water that we put in our systems. We have learned, we breakers, and if you don't know what I mean by breakers, get this book and read it. We breakers have um, devised a world that we don't live on anymore. We live in a theoretical relationship to it. We don't allow the beings that are constantly surrounding us and living inside our own guts to govern our behavior. And when we don't allow that, we can't govern our behavior with each other. And we can't even govern our own internal behavior. When we don't govern our internal behavior, we have a name for that. It's called cancer. Um, when we do that, when I allow the beings that are around me to connect with me and I connect with them, we can govern each other's behavior then. There are times, and at one point in time, there were lots and lots of tents around my apartment. And you know, within a 1 block radius, I'd say 20 or 30 different tents. Some of them, these really elaborate things that block the sidewalk. some of my neighbors who are in wheelchairs could not get down the street. Um, and they couldn't, the wheelchair woman would complain, can you move your tent over? Can you move your junk over? And they just curse her out and keep going because I don't have a relationship with her. And that sound is me wrapping this point up because that was my 3 minutes. Um, we have to have relationships with each other. And I'll leave it there and let you respond to some of that.
Well, it's in terms of coming up with new governing structures or economies, or I'm just trying to wrap my head around okay, I mean I can understand that. I mean I can hmm. Anyhow, I don't know if that
I, I no, I hear you having a thought that's how do we do this? How do we actually do this? And that's where the rubber meets the road, okay? Because it's one thing for Thomas Jefferson to say, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And as he's writing that, he's at Monticello looking out over his fields at hundreds and hundreds of human beings that he didn't think that were equal. He didn't think that they were endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He didn't, he believed it and didn't believe it. He believed it, but kept his own children as slaves. And on his death, he had them sold to pay off his debts. Now, that's pretty darn cold. Now, I've threatened from time to time to sell my children. Okay. I would tell them that story. It's like, yep, I'm just going to sell you by the pound. um, for some reason, they never believed me. Um, but yeah, we don't do that. Now, how do we um, learn how to interact with each other? Most of the people who are busy trying to manage poor people, manage homeless people, manage those people over there, have no connection with them, and therefore they do a really bad job of managing them. What happens when the answer to a problem lies in our own guts? How do you listen to your guts? Can you do that? There are structures in your body where you listen to your guts, and we don't know how to activate them. Some of us don't know how to activate them. I activate mine every day. I talk to my guts every day. Um, it's called the vagus nerve. Um, you can stimulate that vagus nerve, and you have a clear pathway for all of the trillions of beings that are living inside you right now to talk back to you. Um, what happens when the beings that are inside, whoops, there I go again. Let me finish that one. What happens when the beings inside you need to tell you something about what's going on with you? They have ways of getting your attention. One of those ways is to give you a pain in your gut. What do you do when you get a pain in your gut? Do you listen to what they're saying? Or Do you get some Pepto-Bismol, drink it, and kill all of them? You feel better. You've killed a good portion of your own body. You don't replace those trillions and trillions of beings with other beings. Um, you don't listen to what they've got to say. Um, these are all the things that we need to change in order to get us to a point where we can um, truly, truly connect with each other. Okay, I'm done. That was 3.5 minutes. Oh, and let me see what Jenna is. She's unmuted now. I guess she is um, able to say something now. Yes,
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Yep.
As I was listening to this discussion, what came up for me was several things. I remember hearing stories of when the European ships first arrived on the coastlines of the Atlantic, and indigenous people saw, oh, people of different color coming, but somehow they didn't see these massive boats with huge sails.
Mhm.
And that always perplexed me. I'm very visual, and it's like, how would you not see something that in the physical realm is present? And the conclusion is, and from others, is that it was out of their sphere of reference. And so, in that regard, they couldn't see it. My thoughts about society, and I think about this often as well, how does change come about that's the necessary change? And for me, it's a conscious awareness and adaptation, or adoption is the better word, of a different value set. But how do we bring that different value set forward? We can't force people to adopt something that they're not aligned with or they're not ready for. Personally, that's my question.
Um, okay, so you raised, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 different points. I should get 5 3-minute but I'm gonna try to do this within, let's say, 1 or 2 3-minute um segments here. Yes. Um Not only did the people of a very different culture and a different frame of reference not be able to see the ships, we do that ourselves right now. I tell a story about the first time my youngest daughter came out to visit me here in the Pacific Northwest, and I took her hiking in the forests that are surrounding us, and she couldn't see the trees. She was walking through a green room, and she was commenting on the things that she could see in the green room. She saw a gum wrapper, she saw tissues, she saw a beer can. And I then took her off the path and I said, "This is a tree. Put your hand on it." So, it's rough. And I said, "Look at how tall it is." Because she was raised in an urban environment and knew what a tall building is. Like, wow, that's really tall. I said, right. I took her to the next tree and I said, "This is a tree. Put your hand on it. Look at how tall that is." We walked to the third tree and put your hand on it. When we got to the third tree, her jaw dropped and she did this real slow 360-degree turn. And she said, "Look at all of these trees." And at that moment, she could see them. Before that, she could not see the trees. Now, all of my children, but my daughters are intelligent, multi-degreed, etc. But someone said that you can only that there are two things determine what you see. You can see something if you've been trained to see it, and you can see something if you expect to see it. And if you don't or haven't been trained to see it, if you don't expect to see it, you can't see it. Now, you can talk about indigenous people not seeing this big boat. How many things right now do you not see?
That's my question. And I'm also wondering, although this is sort of a razor edge here, is it possible that that was part of Jefferson?
Oh, of course, of course.
Okay, with
He
regard to slavery.
right. He okay, so he had his own eldest child as his manservant. Took him to France with him. This guy looked like Jefferson. He had Jefferson's freckles, he had Jefferson's red hair, and his job was to walk behind his master and make sure he got his food on time and otherwise act like a slave. Jefferson couldn't see him. Now, if Jefferson had a white child, same age, he could see him. That would be his heir. It would be the one who would come after him. He would raise him. He'd make sure he went to the best colleges and schools, etc. And he could see him, but he could not see this child because he was darker than. There's a cutoff point that will allow you to see someone as a human being, and he couldn't see him as a human being. And we right now do that thing with other people. And we need to be able to not do that. Okay. Um, we hold different value sets with each other. Okay. The things that um, this happened just um, uh, within the past 5 or 10 years. Um, they passed these laws. One strike and you are out. Um, and what this was for, in communities that had a lot of gang violence and a lot of gun violence, if you used a gun in the commission of a crime, you didn't get three strikes. You got one. If you used the gun, if you were convicted of that, I think it's like something like 15 years, 30 years, a major, major sentence. Okay, because we got to get tough on crime. Well, they had these college guys that thought it would be fun to go down to the Skid Row area in whatever city they were in, and they were shooting BB guns at homeless people because they thought that that would be fun. And they shot this one guy in the eye and blinded him. Cops caught them. One strike said that they were facing 10 years or 15 years, whatever the punishment was. And there was an uproar. It's like, oh, wait a minute. This isn't who we were passing the law against. Uh, we were passing a law against those gangbangers down there, the black guys and the Mexican guys. Um, they're going to college. You don't want to interrupt their college careers. They were just they were just acting up. Boys will be boys if they're white. Boys won't be boys if they're black. Now, we don't want to say that, but that's the way that we see our ourselves, see our lives, etc. And we do make those those distinctions. We do make those determinations. We do make those, and I'm using this word advisably, discriminations all the time. Put somebody on a jury and have them try a case. I can tell you what the sentence will be before they render it, and it will simply depend on the gender and the race of the victim, the gender and race of the victim, and the gender and race of the perpetrator. Um, if uh, if the victim, the person who was killed, is Black, and the person who did the killing is Black, um, in Camden, 6 months in jail, maybe, you know, 3 year sentence, and maybe you have to serve 6 months of it. Not a big deal. If the victim was white and the perpetrator is Black, you put them in jail and they never see the light of day again. That's what we do. That's how we act. Um, okay. Um, and now, I'm sorry, I have to now answer the other question that you asked, Jenna, which is how we change those frames of reference. And we change them by exposing ourselves to people who are different. And we don't like doing that because we don't like bringing that kind of stuff up. Um, um, you said you can't force people. Oh, yes, you can. Um, what they did at the end of World War II is they took regular old German people that were oblivious to what was going on in their names, and they took them and made them clean up the concentration camps. And there are these pictures of people who, just a German housewife, and she's pushing wheelbarrows of bodies. Um, and you know, you, after a while, you can't say, "I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know." Okay, now you know. Now what are you going to do? Um, and we in our country have definitely painted ourselves into corners where I didn't know, I didn't know, I didn't know. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. And then layer on that, we don't know what human beings are doing. Now think about all the other beings. Um, oh, you gotta go? Okay. Maybe we are wrapping up here. Let me finish this one thought and then see where we go. Um,
Sharif, I want to add this. That question was, I started out with frame of reference, but I had shifted to a different value set. And
mhm.
that's where I made the comment, I don't think we can force values
Um,
on people.
right. So when General Patton took the good Germans, in quotes, to the concentration camps, he couldn't force a value on them, but he could definitely force an experience on them and rely on them to have the value that says, we don't want to do this. That we don't want to hunt and kill an entire whale for the couple of gallons of oil that they have in their heads. we do that because we turn our head while somebody else is doing that for us. We definitely want the oil, okay, but we don't want to uh, do the murder of this being for the sake of this oil, for the sake of whoever owns the ship and their profits. And so what we have to do is is by opening ourselves, and this is what the goal is in the Catalyst meditation, when we start looking at all of the beings, which is a lot of us, all the beings of the air, all the beings of the water, all the beings inside of our own bodies, when I start looking at them as such, I can start thinking that they are with us in a very different way. And I know that there are folks who consider themselves vegans and they hold a different relationship to the animal realms, but they may still have the same energy, the same breaker energy toward the vegetable realms. At the bottom line, if you are going to live, something's going to die. Something has to die. It is the way of life. Um, the only question is, can we be reverent when we take that life? Can we be conscious when we become that life? As my keeper friends, as my indigenous friends say, it's like that life becomes me. I eat a lot of fish and I've become very conscious of that this is a whole other life form. And as that, so what the keepers say, especially the people in this region who live on fish as their primary food, they become the fish. They praise the fish. They acknowledge the fish. As they become the fish becomes them. And that consciousness goes round and round. And when I separate myself from that consciousness, then fish just becomes something wrapped up in cellophane and you know, in the market and or already butchered, fractured, cut up in little steaks, cut up in fish sticks. You have no relationship to this thing as a living being. Um, and that is why we wind up being separated out. If I can't acknowledge the beingness of a fish, how can I do that with a human being? Fish is sustaining my life. I don't need anything from that guy that's walking down the street right now. And Karen, you have your hand up and your microphone on. So
I had an opportunity to take a workshop from someone who is was from the Potawatomi tribe, and she was teaching beadwork and was talking about how she called the beads, sisters, and putting them next to each other, and sometimes you had to, if you were getting frustrated, you just let them, sit and walk away, only come to them with a certain, uh, mm, when you were in a positive mood kind of a thing. So as you're speaking, I was like, um, kind of like, oh, okay, she's embodied this in a way that, as she's working with beads, she's that community kind of a thing. Anyhow, she's having a relationship with the beads, I guess is what I'm saying. It was just an experience I had this last weekend. I thought I'd share that.
No, it's having, I definitely have to turn on timer for this one. It's having a relationship, not with the beads, but with all, all life, all consciousness. Those beads are a consciousness. I have a consciousness. Everybody on this call has a consciousness, but also my button has a consciousness. Now, because I'm wearing this button every day, it starts picking up part of my consciousness. And when somebody's looking at it, they're looking through the button at my consciousness. Um, our it's it's having something that we think is beautiful, like a flower or a tree. This is a really good day in Portland, Oregon. Not a cloud in the sky. I'm looking at several trees, and there's these big bushes out in front of my window that don't let me see the street neighbors. Um, and all this is great. But what about the parts of nature that I don't find particularly pleasant? Okay. Um, I every once in a while I get a fly inside my apartment, and they almost always have to fly right by my head and between me and the screen so that I can get aggravated. And then I can let go of my aggravation. I'm going to kill them. That's the deal is if I'm outside with you, I don't kill you. If I'm inside with you, you're done. Um, but I need to recognize your beingness before I do that. I need to recognize your right to live. I need to do what Thomas Jefferson didn't do with his own children. Okay. And that's I think a really, really big point. Um, can I look at all life, all consciousness, including the life on the star Sirius, including the life of whatever the being is at the bottom of the Marianas Trench? Can I look at all life? Can I look at life that's not even on this planet? Can I open myself to all of that? And because I'm opening myself to all of that, I'm listening for all of that, I get to have a different relationship to me, to all of me, all of the trillions and trillions of me. Um, think about this. When you go to the bathroom, say thank you. And part of saying thank you is saying thank you visually. No, don't say thank you theoretically. Okay. Before you flush that toilet, say thank you. Um, if things work the way they did, you have an awful lot to be thankful for. And you don't think about it. It doesn't even cross your mind. Okay. So no, let's start the process of being grateful and thankful. Um, someone was saying, I don't have anything to be grateful for. It's like, yeah, you didn't pay attention last time you went to the bathroom. Because I know people who can't do that, you know. And if they could, they'd be very, very thankful. They would have eaten different food before they lost their colons. Um, I'm sorry, they had their colons removed. They didn't lose it, they didn't leave it somewhere and then forget where it was. Um, so yeah, so I we we can create a world that reflects our consciousness, but we've got to be conscious first, you know. And I'm going to pause right there. We are coming up on the top of the hour, and this has been an interesting conversation. And I'm going to be doing some workshops around this. And in the workshops, we'll get to practice some of this. Um, not the going to the bathroom parts. Although I've never done a workshop. I've done inadvertent workshops, like doing a workshop in a bus. Real easy. I mean, like your captive audience. That's yeah. What do you think about that? And have discussions inside the bus. But yeah, we won't be going and touring bathrooms and asking people to be more conscious. But I will be doing that hopefully in the near in the next couple of weeks. You'll get notices on workshops coming up for July and August, and then a series of workshops starting in September. I was hoping I was going to be able to announce some of that today, but it's coming together. He's smiling now, and I look forward to doing that with you. Unless anybody has any final words they want to say, let's call this complete for now. Look forward to us connecting again next Thursday. I will get these recordings out as soon as I can, assuming the recording worked today. You'll be getting notices for those. If you are subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, you won't get notices. And we will get together at another point in time. For those of you who are doing the daily meditation, see you tomorrow. For those of you who aren't doing the daily meditation, see you next week. Thanks a lot, and I will talk to you at another point. Bye. See you.